As a country, we have made strides in women in public office. Obviously, we've got a woman of sorts running for the presidency. We have women CEOs. We have women radio personalities. Some of them big enough to be considered nationally syndicated, making tons of money, especially those who are able to get the endorsements of lots of special companies. But we're going to talk right now with Debbie Saviano. She's in Dallas, Texas, and she is an expert on women in leadership and also an expert on the discrepancies and how much we earn compared to our male counterparts. How are you, Debbie?
I'm good, Joyce. I think you and I might be on the same page. I think we're singing to the same choir.
Hey, there you go. That's a good thing to know, because one of the things I've always said is, when I started out in this industry some 3 decades ago, women not only couldn't get a job like I have today easily, but they were definitely expected to work for far less than their male counterparts. And over 25, 30 years, I've seen everybody's boat rise. Mine just is not as quickly as the guys.
Let there be hope. I like to say we've come a long way, baby, but just not far enough.
Exactly. So we are on the same page. Where do you see the big, problems for us? Because, see, I'm not sure that I believe in a glass ceiling. I just think that there are different needs in the workplace, some of which women are perfectly equal to, and some of which they're not.
Well, and I agree. And, Joyce, there's been such a movement for women to go into STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. And right now, that's predominantly male. Well, those are higher salaries, so we need to get women more into those. Now, you and I both come from a background of education, and many times in traditional roles, women chose social services, if you will, to go into. The pay's not as high. Right. So we need to get the women in the roles that are paying the highest in salaries, which is why there's such a movement today for STEM. So I think it's a matter of making sure you choose a job where you know you're going to make the pay. Because today, and this is according to pay scale, but women's wages peak at 38 years of age at $60,000. Men's wages peak at 48, $95,000 a year. But you're right. Some of that is because of the job they're in. I'm like you. I haven't seen a glass ceiling. I've achieved whatever I've wanted to, but it was in the fields I was in. So I think we have to make sure women go into the right fields.
Yeah, and I think they also have to have perseverance, because, if someone starts the race before I do, I expect that they'll finish the race quicker than I will. But that doesn't keep me from running. And one of the things that I have had to accept was, that part of my life was devoted primarily to being a mother. And during the years when I had small children, I had to have a work schedule that accommodated that need. Men don't come up against that so much, and therefore I was less desirable.
That's true. I agree with you 100%. And we also need to have companies make changes. Companies need to look at incorporating salary audits into their business model, if you will, to ensure gender equality. But companies need to make sure they put women on corporate boards. Today, we have 20% serving on corporate boards, even though, I know this rattles us both, but even though there's a correlation between financial performance and gender diversity. So why are they still so slow? We need more women on the board so that they, in turn, will remind everyone we need more women on the boards to ensure that more are invited to that place at the table, if you will.
Yeah, I was, my daughter is a physician, and I was at her medical school graduation out at Stanford. And
congratulations.
Well, yeah, it was years ago, but even then, and let's see, it had to be like 8 years ago. Even then, more than half of the graduating class was female. I mean, things have really changed. When I was her age, if there were 5 gals in a graduating medical school class, it was considered a big win.
Well, and I think there's definitely a movement for women, because almost research across the board will show more women are graduating from college than men are today. And so, again, it's where you start the race. How many women stop to stay home and have children? Companies need to have policies in place where women are not penalized for that. And where they can continue to grow their career.
Right, and where men have an opportunity to do the same thing. I know many dads who'd like to stay home for 3 months.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to have equality across the board, and that needs to be the standard. And that's, one of those things that with us at Women's Leadership Live, Lyndon McMahon and Stacey Shepard and I have tried to do is to train women for success, however they define it. And you're right, it should be men and women across the board. We just happen to be talking about women, because I agree with you on that.
And the other thing that I think really interfered with progress for women, and this is just opinion, I don't know if the statistics will bear me out, but this movement of, this sort of being super sensitive about references in the workplace to your gender or to looking good really made a lot of male employers back away from elevating female staffers, because one wrong look, one wrong statement, and everybody's rushing off with a lawsuit.
Absolutely. And I do think men, and I agree, I think men get a bad rap sometimes, because bless their hearts, they don't know what to do half the time. Do I open the door? Do I not open the door? Do I say, you look good, honey? Because I would say that to a woman. You look great today.
Right.
But you're right. I think sometimes it's like they're trying to balance what's appropriate, what's not appropriate.
Right.
So we need to all be on the same page, equality, and not be so quick to place judgment.
Right. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the tenor out there. It's always aggressive, and it's always, I look at the way the feminist movement has changed since the late 60s, early 70s, when I would have considered myself a feminist,
Yes.
We were looking for equal access to education and equal opportunity in the workplace, and then all of a sudden it became bashing men, and it was like it got so ugly and so divisive that I think a lot of workplaces said I can't be bothered with this angry group.
And my mentors, and I'm sure for you too, because of the time period we were at, my mentors were all men. Yes. I had the most amazing mentors ever, and they were all men.
Exactly. And they were my biggest supporters. They really were. They said, you can do this. Yeah.
You can do whatever you want to do, and to feel the success and to know that there's someone there to help you. So I appreciate the conversation. I think it's important for us to have this, because you're right. It shouldn't be about one or the other. It should be about both, equality for all.
Now, let me ask you about union advantages. For women, being part of a union equalizes the pay quite substantially, doesn't it?
It does. Depends upon, yes, it does. Here's where we go into that opinion field. I live in Texas. We're a non-union state.
We are, too.
We're a right-to-work. Yeah, Florida and Texas have a lot in common.
Right.
We're a right-to-work state. And so that is one of the factors. But then the other side of the coin is, if you have a union, and I know this because of people I know in education, I'll take that for example, they don't have a choice. They must join. Well, to me, you shouldn't be forced to join something you don't want to join.
Right.
That in itself, to me, is discrimination. So, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But yes, they do have equal pay, but then they're forced to become part of it. There's the case right now at the Supreme Court over that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say the prognosis is for this upcoming, next, we don't know who the next president will be, but we do know that regardless, women are making their voices heard and achieving more and more every year. When do you see, how long do I have to work, for instance, to be commensurate to my male counterpart?
Well, there's not good news on that, Joyce. The Institute of Women's Policy Research, it just so happens, they say that if we continue to have change at the same pace, it'll be 2059 before there's equality. Yeah, 2059. However, I agree with you. I think women are starting to realize, you know what, I have to be my own best advocate. We're not good at being our own advocates. Females are not. It's how we're wired. It's how we're made. Not 100%, but for the most part. So I think we're learning we must be our own advocates. We must stand up for ourselves. We must mentor each other. We must support each other, as my partner Linda McMahon says, lift each other up beneath, because if we don't, we're not going to provide that to younger women coming behind us. And I think that's a change. That was not the case 10 years ago. Women in leadership roles sometimes didn't mentor the ones coming after them. I see a huge change in that. So I'm hoping that 2059 is not correct. I think that we can do it ourselves much faster, but I think we have to be our own advocates. Just like you having the conversation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that the war on women isn't being waged in quite the same manner that it was 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. So I think, assertive women will always get an audience. Now, what they do with that is the difference. You know, I can get into any door I want these days. Nobody will dismiss me before I get in. It's when I get in there how I present my case. I think you're absolutely right. We have to become our best advocates and our best spokespersons.
And I think negotiation skills that we must have, that must be a component of our being, of how we relate in the workforce. We have to have those negotiation skills, because if we don't, we can't be the advocate for ourselves that we need to be. And that's, again, I know I'm talking about Women's Leadership Live, but that's something we work with strongly, is making sure women have the skills they need to advance to whatever it is degree they want. Because we haven't had that traditionally, negotiation skills in asking for salary increases and different things. Men have. They've been much better at that.